Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for giving myself, on behalf of the 850,000 members of our union, the opportunity to appear before you today. For our members, this is not an academic exercise. This is not something that is a job assigned to a lobbyist. The fact for our members, this is, in many cases, life and death, work or no work, and what kind of livelihood they'll have. October of this year will mark the 10th anniversary of PNTR paving the way for China to get into the WTO. And we believe that after 10 years, it's time for people to admit that this experiment is not working for America or working for America's workers. And in fact, according to the EPI, Economic Policy Institute, more than 2.4 million jobs have been lost or displaced as a result of our bilateral trade imbalance with China since its accession to WTO. The trade deficit on average has been $226 billion a year in durable goods, including roughly $78 billion a year in advanced technology products. So we believe that it's time for the U.S. to take action on China's undervalued currency, on its indigenous innovation, on its intellectual property rights and theft, on its subsidies, on its export preferences, and in our written testimony, the examples of unfair competition go on and on. I appreciate that the current administration is doing much to enforce our trade laws, but it's vital that the USTR take action and enforce our trade laws. I would like to remind the group that Section 421 on tires has made a huge difference. Members have been called back, companies are investing, people have been rehired, and plants are expanding. But it's a small office at the USTR facing a tsunami of unfair and predatory trade practices when it comes to China. And they're still hamstrung by the fact that trade is just one inbox on the administration's desk. Is there anyone who believes that China is not manipulating its currency? Is there anyone that believes that China is not stealing intellectual property? Is there anyone that believes that China is not giving export subsidies? And is there anyone that believes that China is actually not a mercantilist regime that's playing unfair? Well, I'm happy to talk about any of this, and as you know, our union and I personally are passionate about talking about the threats to our members' jobs. But let me turn to the issues I was asked to talk about. Overcapacity. It's increasing in sector after sector. China claims that it wants to do something about it, but the facts, in fact, speak much differently. In 2009, a report by the European Chamber found substantial overcapacity in several industrial sectors, including steel, aluminum, now wind and renewable energy, equipment and chemicals, cement and glass. China is now the world's #1 steel producer and accounts for nearly half of all production of steel in the world. Chinese output is so great that it equals the combined output of the next 4 biggest steel makers, Japan, the United States, Russia, and India. The EU Chamber study found that by the end of 2008, capacity had reached 660 million tons, yet demand in China was only for 470 million tons, an overcapacity of roughly 200 million tons. As the EU report notes, in the third quarter of 2008, world steel production fell by 20%, yet Chinese production accelerated by 15%. In 2009, China's share of world production increased to 46.6%, up from 37.6% in 2008, even while steel demand and global demand remained low. In our bilateral steel dialogue with China, the Chinese claim that they want to rein in capacity, but there's no proof that they're doing that. We all know that China's communist leaders, whether we want to call them totalitarian or authoritarian, their primary concern is retaining their power. Shutting down capacity and putting people out of work is not part of their 5-year plan. This is also a major issue now in wind energy, the sector that we believe presents tremendous job opportunity for the future. China has now claimed that they will dominate that sector, even if they have to undersell the cost of production. Partnership and progress. The United Steelworkers have agreed to a partnership with the American Wind Energy Association, and it must be coupled with strong development here. Let me close my comments with one other. Trade with China is also a moral issue. And what does that mean to me? America must stand and continue to demand that Chinese workers get the inalienable right to have unions of their choosing that are free and independent of their government and can stand to raise workers' standard of living. We've heard reports in the last months of workers that have actually gone on strike. I would suggest to this committee, for every report you heard, there was 100 you didn't hear about. And America can't be silent on that right to stand and have free collective bargaining in any regime, including here at home. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.